Did you just take the APUSH exam, and are you curious if what you wrote actually earned the point? Stay tuned. I'm going through every question one by one. Let's go through set 2, SAQ 1. So if this question looks familiar to you, this is the one we're going to chat about. It's period 8, social movements, looking at, it's a secondary source, so we're looking at the interpretations of historians. As an AP grader for the last 6 years, one of the major things that I see as a mistake on part A is to only address one of the historians and to say the other felt the opposite or the other didn't agree. And so what you want to think about in your response is, did you actually respond with what both historians believed, and were you comparing apples to apples? You can't make a comparison that is actually two totally different ideas. The ideas that the historians are presenting need to be kind of a similar theme. So for example, historian 1, Anderson, is going to believe that social activism defined the 1960s, whereas the second historian, Brennan, is going to argue that political activism is a major idea. So one is focusing on social movements, the other is focusing on political movements. Another thing that is a difference is that Anderson is focusing on how the activism is in response to corruption or inequality, whereas Brennan is going to argue that the new political activism is in response to voices being unheard in politics. And so you want to think about the two suggestions that I just had are what types of protests were going on and what was the cause of those. So that's just two ideas, but there are others for sure. For part B, there is a crazy amount of evidence that you could have used that hopefully you spent some time in class looking at. So any of the civil rights movements that are happening in this time period work. So not just the African American civil rights movement, but the women's rights, the Chicano, AIM, all of those would work. Also thinking about counterculture and anti-war protests, the student activism works, environmental movement, any of those ideas would work as evidence to support Anderson. I'm guessing some of you struggled a bit more with part C, but there was a significant rise of conservative media outlets and publications at this time that you could have mentioned. Also, Barry Goldwater's Run for President would have been a really good example that you could have used. The idea of the silent majority, that would be clutch. Nixon said that. Also, just the groups, the religious right or the moral majority would work as well. So those are just some examples that you could have included. So there's my answers, my possible answers that I thought of related to short answer question 1 on set 2. Go ahead and drop some comments below if you have any questions, and hopefully I'll be able to assure you that you did wonderful on this short answer question.